At this time, it's my absolute pleasure to introduce Dr. Victoria Briscoe. Dr. Briscoe is a dynamic and gifted speaker and motivator known for delivering messages that pierce the soul, touch the heart, and transform lives. Her passion for the divine is felt by all that come to know her. Born in Tucson, Arizona, Dr. Briscoe began serving in Christian ministry in 1976. By 1983, she had begun teaching in various religious settings, and during the span of more than 30 years, she served in many capacities of ministry, ranging from church janitor to being ordained as senior pastor in 2001. She holds a bachelor's degree in practical theology and will be a part of the University of Metaphysics 2019 graduating class, having received her doctorate in metaphysical science and her doctorate in theocentric psychology. She has been a member and/or officer for various boards such as the Sacramento Employment and Training Agency, Standard Bearers Bible College, and has served as a member and instructor for the Sacramento College of Theology. Currently, she sits as an officer for the board for It's a Heart Thing, a new nonprofit organization serving as a liaison for the material needs of forgotten and disadvantaged seniors. Post-graduation, she is extremely excited about launching her spiritual and personal development career, along with becoming a permanent personality on D. McCoy Radio as the voice of inspiration. With open hearts and a warm round of applause, please help me as I now present to some and introduce to others Dr. Victoria Briscoe.
Thank you for joining me this afternoon. It's an absolute pleasure and an honor to be here. Today we're going to talk about reversing our nation's spiritual and psychological decline. The issue. During the 13th century, there was a king by the name of Frederick II, and during his reign, he performed various psychological experiments, and it's believed that at least one of these experiments was performed on infants. These infants were taken from their parents and placed in facilities where the nurses were instructed to only provide the bare necessities of life, such as bathings, feedings, and changings, but while denying these infants of all love and affection. Well, over the course of time, one by one, each of these infants died. Now, you'd be surprised to know that it's been said that similar experiments have been performed right here in this country, and studies have shown that humans flourish under the influence of love while gradually dying without it. In Matthew's we read, "In the last days, love will grow cold in the hearts of many, and the earth will be full of sorrows." Just take a look around. Last night's televised news will confirm that humanity has somehow found itself in an agglomeration of woes that is seemingly beyond repair. There's national disasters, racial tension, substance abuse, rape, mass murders, road rage, and suicide. And did you know that according to the National Alliance on Mental Illness, that 1 out of 5 people, including adults and children, experience some form of mental illness every single year? That's 43.8 million people every single year. Now, let's look at a comparison. In 2018, statistics said that there were about 1.1 million new HIV cases, a little over 1.7 million new cancer cases, versus the 43.8 million plus people experiencing some form of mental illness every single year. Now, with numbers like that, it's clear that in this country, mental illness is not a disease, it's an epidemic. But how can this be? There are more mega churches, more self-help books, more self-realization organizations in operation today than at any other moment in history. We are the information age. And although there are hundreds of thousands of spiritual videos, blogs, and websites, our nation is still being chemically lobotomized at staggering rates. Now, it's my belief that even though we may live thousands of miles apart, if we as spiritual teachers, practitioners, counselors, ministers, and the concerned make a concerted and a collaborative effort, speaking with one voice and standing for one purpose, we will aid in our nation's, in the reverse of our nation's spiritual and psychological decline. How did we get here? Using the principles of mentalism, cause and effect, correspondence, continuity, we are able to draw this conclusion that the Creator is mind, so therefore we are mind, and that all that we create and experience in this life is a result, a product, or a fruit of our psychological or mind state. We are further able to conclude that the activity occurring in our psychological or mind state is a direct manifestation of the activity occurring in our spiritual state. In preparation of his departure, Christ encouraged his disciples to remain in him, the vine, as he promised to remain in them, the branches, stating that no branch was able to create fruit in and of itself. And that through observation of the fruit produced in one's life, we can determine the source or the mental or spiritual state that produced it. So in the scriptures, we actually find those actions or the corrupt fruits that are produced by what we call the carnal mind, the lower self, or the lower mind. And this misaligned, lower, immature mind operates from a position of fear and insufficiency. Therefore, it's consumed with earthly matters and the survival of only itself. And one of the most dangerous functions of this mind is that it's indoctrinated with the systems of this world, and it thinks it knows absolutely everything, when in truth, it knows nothing. With even the most minuscule discernment, one can see that the functions of the fruits of the lower mind is actually a speculum of our society at large. For that mind, that lower mind, is manipulative, self-centered, undisciplined and greedy, insanely possessive, jealous, and full of envy, always rude and gloating in pride, angry, quick-tempered, vengeful, and through spite it thrives. It's unforgiving, so grudges it will hold, keeping track of every wrong, making it stubborn and hostile. Borrowing from the words of Tina Spalding, the untrained mind is the most dangerous thing in the universe, for it will destroy its own owner if not taught the truth. See, man assumes that he is the victim of some external enemy or affair, when indeed the truth, although it's hard to bear, reveals that he is plagued and incarcerated by his benighted mind, and great is that mind. For there is nothing being done to us, it's being done through us. Is there hope? People are doing their 15-minute guided meditations, repeating all their positive affirmations, praying, making vision boards, and practicing visualizations. But the statistics are telling us that when faced with adversity, a huge portion of our population's spiritual and psychological foundation is unsure. Just because a person knows of something or he has even experienced the something does not mean that they know the something. See, I know of, and I've been acquainted with the works of Justin Hartley, Mandy Moore, and Chrissy Metz, but I've never put myself in the proper position or alignment necessary to meet them, nor have I spent the appropriate time required to get to know them. The archaic definition for the word know leads us to the idea of copulation, or two being conjoined into one. Adam knew his wife, and she conceived. The scriptures reveal that those that know God, or those that have actually copulated and have achieved at one with God, are recognized by one word, and that word is love. But this is where things get real tricky, because there's a pseudo-imitation outer form of love that's generated by the motivations and the senses of the lower self. And this love looks real, it feels real, and it even sounds real. But right below its surface, the lower misaligned mind is always lurking in the shadows. Therefore, it's very, very possible to be philanthropic, giving away all of our food, our clothes, our money to the poor, and still not have this kind of love. And as chilling as it may be, we may even heroically lay down our physical lives for the cause of others and still not have this God kind of love. We can have great knowledge, give psychic and prophetic words, visit altered states of consciousness, and perform great healings, and still not have this God kind of love. For the true God kind of love is not based on a feeling. It's purely a spiritual and a psychological state of beingness, an I amness that's produced from the achievement of at one-ment with the divine self. And it's from this state of beingness or knowingness that we are able to perceive things from a different vantage point. God is love, which is the mystical interplay between the masculine and the feminine principle. And this love is the creator, it is the sustainer, and the maintainer of the entire universe. Perceiving that God is all that there is, and that therefore love is all that there is, we are able to see the divine as both the primordial cause and the effect. For it is the extreme polar opposites of itself and the vastitude of degrees within those extremes, meaning that it is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. For it is of all that is and of all that is to come, for it is one. Now, emanating from this place of all sufficiency and knowing the true nature of all things as good, for God is good, this God kind of love eradicates the necessity of the fruits and the functions of the lower self. And in this state of awareness or transcendence, love is no longer forced or contrived. There is no more striving to be loving, for through at one-ment, we literally become effortless love. And it's from this open, selfless, spiritual, and psychological state of wholeness that the fruits of the Spirit are manifested as pure kindness, gentleness, compassion, genuine forgiveness, unwavering patience, humility, self-control, and generosity. See, as we mature in our intimate knowing of the infinite love and its goodness, there will no longer be any feelings to hurt, no anger to frustrate, no pride to humiliate, no heart to mend, and no problem to solve. For in the perfecting of this knowing lies the secret of authentic peace, joy, and happiness. And in the words of Meher Baba, of all the forces that can best overcome all difficulties is the force of love, because the greatest law of God is love, and love holds the key to all problems. Our challenge. In the words of Dr. Leon Masters, the founder of the University of Metaphysics in Sedona, when we grow in spiritual maturity, we will realize that there is only one real need of the human soul, and that is a need for a relationship with the Creator. See, Dr. Masters didn't exalt himself as an idol or prescribe a particular religion or fix our attention on sticks and stones. Instead, he presented the life-changing benefits of a Christ-conscious life, led us to the source within through the posture of meditation, and taught us how to receive. And I believe that our challenge is to teach as we've been taught, by leading this generation into an actual relationship with the divine. See, many people have been led to the water. They know where the water is. They talk about the water. They wade in the water. And they've had many experiences with the water. But the fruits that are produced in their lives confirms that they have never learned to personally drink the water. And as spiritual leaders, I believe it's our job to teach them to slow, S-L-O-W, down, and drink. S, surrender. We must show this generation how to slow down and surrender to the divine self by teaching them how to submit their anger, their hurts, and their confusion to the process of love. Love is the true measuring stick of our evolvement. And love evolvement is only achieved through the complete and utter renunciation and abdication of the lower self. So be honest with them. Let them know that initially it's going to be painful. And it's going to be torturous to that lower mind. But in due time, it will become their greatest joy as they begin to understand that spiritual growth is simply and most assuredly love growth. And through the realization that spiritual maturity is love maturity, what once was perceived as problems will now serve as an invitation from love to rise to their highest good. L, linger. We must teach this generation to slow down and linger in the presence of infinite intelligence until its will and purpose has been imparted. For by way of meditation that we are able to achieve this mystical union with the divine, thus leading us to true enlightenment and self-realization. In order for us to know the infinite, we must linger and be impregnated by its presence daily. And through that consistent exposure to its environment, the science of variation and conformity assures that association will bring assimilation. Help them understand that the reward is so much greater than the sacrifice, because by this assimilation comes transmutation. And by transmutation, our transformation is definite. And as this new, high, transmuted, pure mind bears fruit of its own kind, by the principle of correspondence, we shall witness the pure mind of God incarnate, the I am, the all-knowing, the all-powerful, the ever-present, the perfect, loving, pure Christ consciousness operating in, as, and through us. Oh, teach them to obey. We must help this generation learn how to discern and obey the subtle nuances of the Spirit on a moment-by-moment basis. For obedience to the divine is the only way to spiritual, psychological, and physical advancement. It is only through the beauty of obedience that we witness the constant diminishing of our lower self. And if faithful to the process, like the mythological phoenix, from the ashes of the old self shall the new man arise in abundant life and victory. W. We must teach this generation that after we have sought the kingdom, received its wisdom, and have walked faithfully in obedience to its will, that we must slow down and be patient with ourselves and with the process of manifestation. For the word of infinite wisdom can never return void. For it will, with definite exactness, achieve and accomplish the purpose for which it was sent. And so, with good courage, a strong will, and a heart filled with gratitude and thanksgiving, we are able to make positive affirmations declaring that it is so and so it is. In conclusion, Carl Jung once said that until we identify our issues and correct them, we will continue going around the same mountain. Because when we refuse to deal with issues, they come to us in the form of fate. Now, knowing this to be true, how can we afford to lead this generation into anything other than a one-on-one relationship with the divine self? For in the divine self resides all remedies, every answer, and it is the ultimate coping mechanism. So let us be willing to minister our way out of ministry, speaking only the truth in love, boldly abolishing all spiritual fads by consciously and consistently dedicating ourselves to the fostering and the fanning of the flames of this phenomena of love. Let's lead this generation to the water and actually teach them how to slow down and drink from the well that never runs dry. For greater the need, greater the supply. And using the tools that we each have in our hand, with one voice and one purpose, let us stand. And by and through this love, we shall see this generation transform from spiritual infancy to spiritual maturity. Because as we all learn to forgive one another, to bless one another, appreciate and serve one another, the power of infinite love will heal us. It will liberate us. Love will strengthen us. It will build us up. It will beautify and enliven us as it brings all things into harmony with the divine, thus reversing our nation's spiritual and psychological decline.